Thank you, thank you. Well, I guess my appearance changed significantly. I don't look as good as I did yesterday. But my name is Chandra. I'm the founder of Tides.network. It's a decentralized peer-to-peer health insurance network built on top of a generic insurance protocol. But that's not what I'm going to talk about today, because you guys heard about Tides yesterday from that good-looking guy who was on the first slide. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what are the applications of the blockchain, specifically in healthcare. Because there is a lot of optimism and hype about the blockchain and tokens and tokenization and ICOs. And that's actually not really unique. You know, how many of you guys have read Carlota Perez and her book, like Technological Revolutions and Financial Capital? Right, just 2 people. That's cool. So I'll give you an example. So this is the theory that there's a highly visible technology trigger, right? It's a fundamental breakthrough that happens, you know, on top of the work that's been done over decades, and then a lot of people see it and realize the general implications and the applications of that technology. They get excited. They start to build on a lot of you know, similar things, maybe clone it, work on it. And then there's a lot of investment that goes into it. And eventually, the bubble pops. You know, people realize what the real applications are, and slowly the adoption comes after. And that's no different from what the web was. You know, the first applications of the web were like, you know, brochures and catalogs. Companies putting their catalogs online. And that's it for a couple of years. And then people were dissing, you know, the innovation, just like they're talking about the blockchain and tokens and ICOs, et cetera, now. So how does this apply specifically to healthcare? Well, I think it's good to periodically go back and revisit what it is that the blockchain does or what it was invented for. It's basically a technology of trust disintermediation. That's what it was designed for. Anywhere there's an intermediary that needs to enforce trust, you know, you don't know your neighbor, but you need to transact with him. There's no way for you or an intermediary to enforce trust. And the blockchain, being the distributed ledger that's synced and is protected by a consensus mechanism, does that. So where does that fit into the current healthcare applications? Well, what are the transactions that are not happening in our healthcare system because 2 parties don't trust each other? You know, you can talk about, you know, many of those applications. But the second thing is, with the smart contract blockchains, where are the transactions or business processes not being you know, developed? Where are the transactions not happening? Where is the business logic failing because there is no smart contract blockchain? That's the other question. So fundamentally, what it should contain is an order of the transaction data. That's the most obvious use case. And where does that fit into healthcare? It fits into payments. It fits into insurance. It fits into anywhere there's transactability that is required without you having to know the counterparty or the party on the other side. I myself personally don't see many applications in the healthcare data space beyond where transactability happens, which is like insurance, health insurance, that's obvious. Payments to providers, that's obvious. You know, payments between healthcare facilities, that's another use case. And the interesting thing about healthcare is almost all of these healthcare systems are federated in the sense that they know each other, they trust each other, they have established regulations and guidelines, and these are not parties that you can suspect will be running away with your money, running away with your data, and selling it like some big social media companies do. The other question is, they have data, right? You have different hospital systems, healthcare systems. You have data in one place, there's another silo, there's, you know, you go into another hospital, there is no communication. Okay, that's a great use case. But how can that become transactable, right? What is the value, or what is the price of a patient's medical record? Yeah, notice that I'm not saying that it does not have value. It's just that they don't have a price. And there's very compelling reasons why it's really hard to do price discovery on these pieces of data. In aggregate, it might still work. You know, you could say, for example, 2 healthcare institutions need to exchange this data, and there's a price that they periodically pay each other depending on the usage. But for that, you don't really need the blockchain. So the next question is, there's a lot of applications and people spending their resources and time on developing blockchain solutions for data sharing. But you have to, I think, at least once or twice, go back and ask, why are the hospitals still using fax machines? Why are they printing out people's medical records, faxing them to another hospital with another person waiting by the printer or the fax machine? Why haven't they come online and started doing this online? There's incentive problems there. There's economic problems. Hospitals really don't care because they get paid by the user survey. So it's a very complex ecosystem. Just because we have a blockchain-based data sharing system doesn't mean that they're going to adopt it. And the other question is, most of these hospitals can't even run a good EMR system that is completely in the cloud. They can't run their client side of the software well. And I know that because I'm one of the people who needs to interface with their electronic medical record system. So imagine bringing them all up to line, running these nodes and doing these computations and pricing these things and extracting and exchanging data between each other. I think that's very far off. The second question we need to ask ourselves is, what is the price of decentralization? It's very expensive, as we know. Block space is probably the most expensive storage space there is. Centralization works because there are hierarchies, you have certainty, and it's efficient, it's cheap. That's why centralization works. If you need to decentralize it, but centralization has problems too, obviously. Censorship and political costs and arbitrariness will make censorship disadvantageous to the users. But you have to always ask yourself, why does the cost of decentralization justify the benefits for mitigating some of those things? I don't see a big problem with arbitrariness in our healthcare data. I don't see a big problem with censorship. Hospitals, healthcare system don't censor people again, social media companies do. So you have to ask yourself why you're doing this decentralized, blockchain-based data sharing economy, cryptocurrency token, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing that the blockchain doesn't do is it does not liberate you from actually having to build a product that people want and value and pay for. It would be nice if it did, but it doesn't. And also, it makes it extra difficult because you have to now not only build your business, you have to design an economic system that actually makes sense. It's probably, in many ways, more difficult than building a traditional startup. And then it does not liberate us from finding product market fit, wherever the hell that is. We're all looking for it, obviously. And instead of wasting time and resources on building imaginary solutions to imaginary problems, I think we should zoom out periodically, maybe once in a while, on a down day like today, when the weather is terrible, and then just get even more depressed and get some perspective. So that's my talk. Thank you.